Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I prepare photos for Final Cut Pro or any editing system. So the first thing, I want to make sure that I have the right color profile downloaded on my system, on my Mac. So I'm going to go to, I need the Apple RGB color profile, and if you don't have that, you can go to adobe.ly. It's a shortcut, ly/DLBKGH, and I have it already. Oops, I had it already in my history, so I think I'm just going to go back to there. So once you do that, you'll see it, ICC profile color downloaders, and it's in my history. Let's see this for Mac OS, and it shows all the RGB color profiles, and you'll see the CMYK, that's for print, of course, and the one we want is this Apple RGB. All right, so once you do that, you can go to proceed to download, then you're gonna go download now. All right, so now that you have that installed, you're gonna go to your Macintosh hard drive, and then go to hard drive. I'm in Lion 10.7 right now, and then I'm going to go into library, then I'm going to go into color sync, profiles, then I'm going to go into recommended, and then you see the ICC is installed right in there. So you just drag the install folder right over into there, extracted, and it shows our Apple RGB. All right, so once you have all of that done, now I'm going to open up Aperture because that's what I use. Some people use Lightroom, but I just use Aperture. So this is a photo from a short film, Baptism of Chloe Foy, that I took some behind the scenes, and the director's talking to the actor. And it's a pretty neutral picture. That's why I want to use this. I shoot a lot in neutral, so I can go inside the editing software to enhance it. So let's create a preset for the Apple color profile. So first of all, when I go File Export, I'm going to go on File Export Version. Then I'm going to go down to Edit right here. I have one right here, but I'm going to show you how to create a new one. Edit. All right, so let's just delete this one right here. Yes. All right. So what I'm going to do, we'll start from original size, and then we'll just hit plus, and we'll call this Final Cut Pro Export Photos. All right. So always make it 72 DPI. Then include metadata, image quality. That's fine. 72 is, of course, for web, and then I'm going to go here, and then when this sRGB is selected, I'm going to go here that says Apple RGB. Then I'm going to scale it to fit within pixels, and I'm going to use 2880. This is real important, by 1920, and I use this because usually photos and HD video is 1920 by 1080, so it's 1080i, so it's about 150% of the size, and this is going to allow me to move on the photos. So I'm just going to hit OK, and then I'm going to hit current version name, that's fine, export version. Alrighty, so let's export this again without the color profile, and let's see what happens. So Final Cut export photos. Let's see, JPEG. Let's say 50% of the size. Actually, let's go in here to edit, and 50% of the size. This is S, the usual, or usually is RGB 1998. And let's see the difference, and then we're just going to do that. Alrighty. So let's go on a desktop, and this is the Apple version with the correct size, Apple, and this is the other version. I'll just call this other. Okay, so let's look at this. All right, looks a little bit better. Let's look at that. All right, really can't tell a real difference right now from the screen, but once we put in Final Cut Pro, you will see the difference. So let's go ahead and import this into Final Cut Pro. All right, now that I have the photos in the Final Cut Pro 10, a few things you want to do. So just to make sure we're all on the same page here, so I'm going to click on the photo, and by default I have my photos to be 10 seconds when I import photos and things like that. I have them to be 10 seconds. There it is, or 4 seconds. Default length is 4 seconds. I can make it 5 or anything like that. All right, so I'm just going to hit Command 4, and then I'm going to look at the image information. Now, I don't see too much here, so I'm going to have to go under Extended View. Now, when I go to Extended View, it shows me the camera name. It shows me the frame size. That's real important. So this is the original photo, 5. When I shoot on large on the Canon, it shoots 5184 by 3456. All right, and it shows ISO, shows all the information and when it was imported. Now, if I click on this, let's look at this. All righty, so we have Adobe 1998 color profile, and then we have another size. It's about 50% of this one right here. So that was a 50% one. Now this is the one that I reduced in Aperture, Apple RGB, Canon, and then I have the same thing. So you want your pictures to look as good as possible. So what I'm going to do now is show you, because the computer has to do a lot more work to get a picture that's 5,000 pixels down instead of something that just has to move on. All right, so Final Cut Pro is a little bit different. Final Cut Pro 10. So we're going to go on this picture, the other. I want to make sure that's the right one, and that is the correct one. So we'll just call this one, we'll rename this and call this the Apple 2880. So 2880 is what you really are aiming for in your pictures. So when I just select everything with a picture, and then I just hit the W key, I'm faced with a pop-up menu. Do I want it 1080i, 1080p, I'm sorry, 1920? And I think I do 24 frames about, I'll just do 2997. I've been shooting a lot of stuff on that. And then I put it down on the timeline. So when it goes on the timeline, it doesn't fill up the entire space. So it's like, what's going on? I know it's a full frame. It's a funny thing with Final Cut Pro 10. So what I'm going to do now is go over here, go into Video, and now I'm going to go down under, make sure that's selected. Then I'm going to go under Spatial Conform. Now, instead of Fit, I'm going to make sure I hit Fill. And you see, if I hit Fill, it fills the screen. Now, if I hit None, it would even do some weird stuff on there. But I want it to fill the screen. I don't want it to fit. So you always want to do Spatial Conform, Fill. Now, once you do that, then you go into, I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to click on this button right here. And I'm going to just make everything else go bye-bye. Now, then I'm going to go right here, 25%. Now you can see where you can move on the picture. You see where you can move just ever so slightly on the picture. You can do it from this way, do it another way. Another way to do it, of course, is a good old Ken Burns effect. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit Done. Then I'm going to hit there. Then hit Ken Burns, cropping and Ken Burns. So I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to end it. Actually, let's start and end right there. And Final Cut Pro does a great job with the Ken Burns effect. And let's click on End. So reverse it so we can click on End and make them similar. And we'll just hit that reverse. If I want to preview it, all right. If I don't like what it says, or if it goes too slow, if this end goes too slow, I can always just move it up, or if too fast, move it down. But it shows me that where it's going. So I want it to really focus on this as my center of attention. And the more subtle the moves, the better. Because if you did something like this, let me just pause it. And if you did something like this in the 10 seconds that you had, you'll see it's all right, but it's still a little bit more dramatic. I'm all about the subtleties. So if you can do that and not bring attention to the transition. The thing about editing that I tell a lot of people is that when you bring attention to the edit, that means you haven't done your job. So we're going to go ahead and then we're going to play this full screen real quick. And you see how slowly it's moving, very slowly. Okay? So I wanted that because if I have a voiceover or something like that on there, it would move extremely slow. So here are the other options that I would have if I'm moving this large picture down here. But if I can, and actually I just clipped some of my pictures. Let me just go back. And as you see, the computer is working real hard because it has this large picture on here. I just clipped some of my old picture off, and that's fine. And I would go back under Command 4, and I would go back under Fill. But again, this is a larger picture, so it's going to take a little bit more horsepower to do that. And I always suggest that you reduce your pictures to 2880 by 1920. This is a tip I picked up by a company called MediaStorm out of Brooklyn, and it's worked for me ever since. I just wanted to pass this along. So you don't want to use these larger pictures. You want to reduce them. If you have Aperture, if you have Photoshop, iPhoto, I don't know if you can use iPhoto, but you want to make sure you reduce all of your pictures, and then ever so gently make your adjustments, even if you have to do the Ken Burns effect, which is very popular in photos, and try to make them go like that. Now, this is a little bit different, the process. If you have a vertical picture, I would suggest that what I've done, I put the background in Photoshop first, because in Final Cut Pro 10 with vertical pictures, let me see if I have one so I can show you. Let's look for a vertical picture real quick so I can export one and show you that one, and then we'll go from there. A lot of pictures I take are not vertical. Okay, here's one right here of Janae. We'll just use this one, and we'll go export version, and we will just do Final Cut export right there, and let's see what happens. All right, let's see a vertical picture. Go to our desktop, and what happens when we throw this on the timeline? See, just a black background. Okay. Now, if we want to move on this, watch what happens. Ken Burns. It's just going to move on the top of half of her. So it's just going to make the picture larger. So do we want that? A lot of times we may not want that. So we may want it like this, wider. And to go in like this. We start and we finish. Let's see how this looks. It's too much, but you have the black background involved in it, and you can play around with these and do a lot with the start and finish and how it starts and where it starts and things like that. There's one picture right there. It goes that way. But the key is, when you have vertical picture, you could put a background behind it and put something over top of the photo. You know, put her down here. Let's just do this. And then let's say if this were a background, or if I have a generator, you know, you could do something like that. But I brought the entire photo in. So that's all for today on today's tutorial. Let me just show you generators. If I go under here and generators browser, and then if I wanted my custom to just bring that in, or I could do a fabric, and then you can go under and adjust the generator. All right, so that's one of the ways you can do it. I usually do the black background to just make it well. So if you have any questions, you can always visit our website, webvideochefs.com, or email us at ask@webvideochefs.com. Thanks for watching.